They wanted to lock me up, and they wanted to throw me out of New York, and they wanted to bankrupt our companies, and they want to gag order us and steal our wealth and do everything else they could to take down the organization and the family name and embarrass us. I mean, I wasn't sleeping with a dead brother's wife. I wasn't taking crack. I wasn't taking heroin. There was no prostitution. There was no illicit companies. There were no shell entities. Could you imagine if that were me? I could argue to you my father's life was exponentially better outside of politics than it is in, right? He didn't have to take the 100 bullets. He didn't get shot in the ear. He didn't almost get assassinated on a golf course. He didn't have to spend $400 million defending himself. You know, Mar-a-Lago is a hell of a nice place to live, as is his golf courses, but he wanted to save this country. The difference between him and call it Barack Obama, who went from being a community organizer to having the nicest house in Martha's Vineyard, is pretty damn substantial. For my father, it was a step back. For our entire family, Washington was a step back in a major way. It's a story of the forming of the greatest political movement in American history by far. It's a story of a family that, hey, if you work and you fight and you persevere and you have backbone and you do not break and you do not cower, you can overcome all evil.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end, my friend. And as always, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to our God for that. You know, I've had many guests on my show that I've had sit-downs with, a number of people. I'm sure those of you that follow me are familiar with many of them. A while back, I had the opportunity to sit down with Lara Trump. It was a terrific interview, enjoyed it very much. I was on her platform also. And she was representative to me of the Trump family, just a very nice person, very smart, very nice person. And today I have the opportunity to sit down with her husband, Eric Trump, obviously the son of Donald. And, you know, he's written a book, and I have the book right here in my hand, an amazing book, by the way. It's called Under Siege, and it's My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation. And, you know, I want you to look at this. This is a son writing about what the family of Donald Trump had to go through. And I can relate to this in a different way. And I'm going to tell you this, people. You know, my father was Sonny Franzese, you know, very high profile figure. And as a result, my family went through a lot. We really did. My dad was highly investigated. And as a result, the family had to endure a lot. 3 trials, him being in and out of prison, in and out of jail, did 40 years in prison, destroyed my family in a way. But you know what? My father was a criminal. He was involved in criminal activity. To a great degree, I went through the same. Brought it on myself. I was involved in that life. 7 indictments, 8 years in prison, put my family through hell. And some of it justified, you know, when the government came after me, and some of it was not. I'm going to be straight out with you. But I take responsibility for what I did. That's the choice that I made, to be involved in that life, and consequences come with it. But here's a young man, I do call him a young man, I'm old enough to be his dad, who did nothing wrong but support his father. And what his family had to go through, and I'm not getting this only from him, this is a terrific book. It's a book that everyone should read, whatever your feelings are about Donald Trump. Doesn't matter. Because this book shows you exactly what could happen when one political party weaponizes the government to go after their political enemy, or to go after their enemy, period, whether it be political or whether they just don't like you, doesn't matter. And what this family had to endure as a result of that was just something I have never seen before in my life. And I was on the street half my life. I saw what goes on. I saw how the government can come after you and attack you. But again, they were justified. We were criminals. They used the full extent of the law to come after us. I get it. Sometimes it was unjustified, don't get me wrong. Did they frame people? Absolutely. When Donald Trump ran for president, the kids took over. When I say kids, his sons, they took over, Eric especially. And I want to read something, because Donald Trump wrote the foreword to this book, and Lara wrote another introduction to the book. But I want to read something, because this tells you a little bit about Eric that you may not know. You've seen him on television, you've seen him talk, and obviously he's supportive of his father. He's a very intelligent young man. I want to read this, and this is from his father. This is from a father to a son. Eric is not one to chase the spotlight. He just works, fights, and wins. He's calm under pressure, strong, focused, and unshakably loyal. When I first became president, I needed someone I could trust, who was rock solid, who could lead thousands of employees and oversee the best skyscrapers, the best golf courses, clubs, hotels, and vineyards anywhere in the world. Eric was only 33 at the time, but I didn't doubt him for an instant. He became my true apprentice, running the Trump organization in my absence and doing an incredible job. Many people have said to me, "Sir, Eric might be working even harder than you." He is a winner at everything he sets his mind to, and he has delivered amazing results, all the while being under siege, which is the title of this book. And people, that is true. From the moment Donald Trump walked down that escalator in 2016 and threw his hat into the ring to become president, him and his entire family have been under siege. Under siege. And with this young man, he had to write this book because he had to make people aware of how dangerous this could become when any political party that is in power weaponizes all the artillery they have at their disposal, the FBI, the Department of Justice, the IRS, and all of that, to go after their political enemies or their enemies, period. I've read through this book. It is fascinating, I'm telling you, and it is scary. And I can't wait now to sit down with him and get his perspective. But I'm so happy he wrote this book. And I'm telling you, you got to read it. It doesn't matter. This is not a book only about Donald Trump. This is a book about what can happen to anyone, what can happen in the United States when one political party wants to attack their enemies and use the entire might of the federal government to go after them. It's a great book. I really, really encourage you to read it. And right now, without any further delay, I'm bringing my very special guest on, Eric Trump. I got to tell you, I've been looking forward to this, especially after I had that great sit down with your wonderful wife, Lara. She was terrific.
She's the best. The best Trump by far. Probably the toughest as well.
You know,
it's a tough cookie.
I have to ask you this, Eric. I got to start off with this, only because it's been on my mind ever since. I asked Lara this also. The night that your father was elected, back in November, the whole family came out on the stage so poised, just so natural. It was like I expected to see you so exhilarated, but the way the family held itself was just, it was a wonder in itself. What was the feeling that you had the night you came out, all of you?
Yeah, so Michael, what people don't realize is, as excited as you are, right? I mean, you campaigned every single day and you fought like hell. You're exhausted at that point. I mean, at that point, we hadn't slept for 72 hours, probably much longer than that. We had been on the campaign trail doing 6, 7, 8 events every single day, day after day for months and months. We were always the family that left it all on the field, right? While Hillary was planning lavish cocktail parties, under some nonsense glass ceiling, we were out there working our ass off and fighting, and in Michigan until 2 o'clock in the morning. And we always left it. I mean, we never planned the parties. We never planned the victory speeches. We didn't have the caviar and hors d'oeuvres. You know what we did? We worked our ass off, and we wanted to win, and we worked every second until the very end. So we walked out there. We might have been poised, but I can tell you we were tired as hell, and we had left it all out there. And it was certainly a happy moment, but you also realized that there was not an ounce of energy more that you could have otherwise exerted throughout the entire process. So sometimes it was hard just to keep a smile on your face and not fall asleep. But man, it was a hell of a victory. It was a great feeling, and I pinch myself every day, especially when you see Middle East peace like last night. I mean, had the siege won, had these criminals beaten us, you wouldn't have had any of this. You would have had wars all over the earth. You would have lost America. I mean, you would have lost who we are as a country, and that's honestly what makes it all worth it.
My friends, you may not have heard, but I now have a wine branded in my name, Franzese wine. I'm very proud of it. It comes from the world's first vineyards. We have alcoholic wine and non-alcoholic wine, several varieties, fruit varieties. You're going to love it, different than anywhere you've ever tasted before. So enjoy this with your friends. Go to franzesewine.com, an offer you shouldn't refuse, but a taste you're going to love. Well, Eric, I have to tell you this, the title of your book, your new book, Under Siege, is so appropriate because I spent over 20 years on the street, and I can honestly say this. I have never seen any one person and a family be attacked the way your dad and your family has been attacked. And understand that. 20 years on the street. I mean, I visited my father in prison for 25 years. I had my share. I was around a lot of guys. I never seen guys on the street get attacked like your dad and your family.
Yeah.
And, for a while I didn't understand it, but then really getting to see the people on the left and the vitriol and the hatred that they've been spreading, now I get it. Your
Yeah.
father just stood in the way of these people maintaining control and power, and they just can't deal with it, period.
Yeah. Honestly, I think these guys were substantially worse than some of the guys on the streets. At least some of the guys on the streets, and we knew New York very well. At least they kept control of neighborhoods and certain things. And these guys are. I mean, they're the greatest criminals of all time. I never thought I would have said that about the United States government, but they did everything they could to bankrupt us, to break us, to try and imprison us, to take away our free speech, to gag order us. They corrupted the courts. They corrupted the judges. They corrupted the law clerks. They made up dirty dossiers. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history, having never done a damn thing wrong. Again, they weaponized the banks against us. They told the banks to cancel us and deplatform us. All right. I mean, they made up facts that we had secret servers communicating with the Kremlin in Moscow in the basement of Trump Tower. Michael, it was all BS. It was all bullshit. Everybody knows it was, right? And they did this every single day because they wanted to take down our voice. They wanted to, make sure that we had no money to go out and fight. They wanted to make sure we had no time to go out and fight. They wanted to weaponize the system and every aspect of that system to beat us at every single turn. That is the concept of a siege. That is what Under Siege is based on. And all we wanted to do as a family, by the way, we're the last family that needed politics. All we wanted to do as a family was go in there and save our country and save Christianity and save freedom and save our American flag and stop the woke nonsense and stop men from swimming in women's sports and stop Colin Kaepernick from kneeling for the national anthem and in front of the American flag. We wanted to protect the family unit. We wanted to make sure we had the greatest economy of all time, that we stayed the superpower of the world. And they couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle that a bunch of misfits who knew absolutely nothing about politics came in and beat Hillary Clinton, who was the greatest political, dynasty probably of the century until my father came along. And so they weaponized everything against us. They did everything they could to corrupt the system. And in doing so, I would literally say that they're worse than half the guys on the street. They're probably worse than 3/4 of the guys on the street in the games that they played. It was un-American. And thank God we won. Thank God for this nation we won.
Well, there's no question about that, Eric. And I have said this many times. And I defend your father and his administration because you as a family and your dad as a person and a president has the same values that I have and my family has. And that's why I support you, as much as I do. But I've told people so often, I said, listen, the problem with all of you want to make complaints against Trump, but you never want to be honest about what happened in the past administration. And until you're ready to be honest with me about that, you have no conversation. And I can tell you this, having experience on the street, I've had 3 racketeering indictments myself, 2 federal, one brought on by Rudy Giuliani, who's now become a friend, and 1 state in Florida. And I can tell you this, the information that the GOP committee collected against Joe Biden and his son Hunter and his family, I can tell you this, there was more information and evidence collected against him than there was in any one of my indictments for a RICO indictment. No question about it. And I stood by that, and I've been saying that now for well over 2 years. There was more information with the suspicious bank accounts, with the text message, the emails, the $27 million coming into those accounts. They were all shell accounts, I know that. And yet everybody kept quiet about it. Nobody said a word. They fought against it. And that's why, I knew from the start that this was nothing but BS against your dad all the way down the line.
Hey, Michael, tell me, right? And I'm saying this, rhetorically, but what product was Hunter Biden selling? Like, you know what I do, right? You're a New Yorker. You know what we do. We've sold hotel rooms. We've sold condos for forever, right? We're one of the biggest golf operators in the world, residential buildings, commercial buildings, right? We're in construction. You know what we do. What the hell did these people do? I've never seen so many bank accounts, so many hidden, strange bank accounts for what? What product are they selling? We all know, right? Again, I'm asking rhetorical questions, but this is the greatest enterprise that doesn't have a website. Where's their website? What product other than influence are they settling? And then all of a sudden, Joe Biden becomes commander-in-chief, and Hunter Biden happens to become a great artist. He becomes a magical finger painter. All of a sudden, his art is incredibly valuable as he's selling it to everybody all over the country and all over the world, putting lots of money in his pocket. And yet, if I did 1/1000th of what he did, I'd be in jail for the rest of my life. They tried to imprison me for doing absolutely nothing wrong. They couldn't find a damn thing that I've ever done wrong, but yet they wanted to lock me up, and they wanted to throw me out of New York, and they wanted to bankrupt our companies, and they want to gag order us and steal our wealth and do everything else they could to take down the organization and the family name and embarrass us. Yet, I mean, I wasn't sleeping with, a dead brother's wife. I wasn't taking crack. I wasn't taking heroin. I wasn't, there's no prostitution. There was no illicit companies. There were no shell entities. Could you imagine if that were me? Could you imagine if I got charged with gun crimes? If I was lying on 4477, right? I mean, could you imagine if I was lying on those forms about, in the middle of these benders, I'm filling out gun forms saying that, I wasn't taking any narcotics. Could you imagine if that was a Trump? I would be in Sing Sing. I would be upriver. You know exactly where I'd be, right? They would have put me in Rikers 100 times over. And they tried to do that, but the media was carrying these guys. Well, they would protect them at every single turn. The establishment would protect their candidate because they got something out of it. And that was the problem with the whole system.
Eric, if that was you or I doing what they did, we'd be doing 100 years on a RICO indictment, no question about it. And those shell companies that they had no brick and mortar operation. They had no product they were selling. They had nothing. It was just money coming into an illicit account and going into their pockets. It was so obvious, absolutely obvious.
Yeah. But what the good news is? The American people saw through it, right? And the really good thing about Americans is they're smart as hell. They know instantly if somebody's a phony, and they saw through it. And then all of a sudden you have mainstream media. Michael, the reason you have such an independent voice right now, I don't think it would have been possible 10 years ago. And you know why? Because ABC and NBC and all these guys sucked up all the airways. Why do you have the power of the voice that you have right now? It's because no one likes mainstream media anymore. They've lost the narrative. They've lost control. They've lied to people. They lied to them through COVID. They lied to them through every single election. They wanted people to believe that Joe Biden was cognitively sound when he wasn't. They tried to prop Kamala up as if she was, the second coming in politics when, she was frankly worse than he was. They lied about every scandal, right? They did everything they could to take somebody down, right? And all of a sudden, American people, they didn't want to be lied to anymore. There's only so many times you can cry wolf before somebody calls BS. And it's why you're doing so well, and it's why Joe Rogan's doing so well, and it's why independent voices all over this country are doing so well. So in a certain way, they might have actually done us a great favor.
Yeah, I believe so. And I got to tell you this, Kamala Harris, I am at a loss as to anybody with an ounce of intelligence could have voted for that woman. The bottom line, the woman is totally incompetent. She was a DEI hire as vice president. The thought of any of my fellow Americans putting that woman in charge, and I said it to so many people yesterday on a podcast, I said, could you imagine that woman dealing with Putin or dealing with the matters in Ukraine or Israel or something like that? Absolute disaster, but yet people were willing to put her in that position. And, Eric, I've said it, there's so much of a hunger for power on the left.
That's
that
right.
They don't care about people. They don't care about us. They don't care about the constituents. All they care about is maintaining power and control. Bottom line, and they'll try to eliminate anybody that's in their way. Anybody.
Well, you know what? I think it's one of the reasons my father won, right? I think it's one of the reasons that we were embraced in politics because we actually didn't need the power, right? I mean, I could argue to you my father's life was exponentially better outside of politics than it is in, right? He didn't have to take the 100 bullets. He didn't get shot in the ear. He didn't almost get assassinated on a golf course, right? He didn't have to spend $400 million defending himself, through absolute shams. Mar-a-Lago is a hell of a nice place to live, as is his golf courses. He could have done all of it. He didn't need it, right? But he wanted to save this country. The difference between him and call it Barack Obama, who was a community organizer, who went from being a community organizer to having the nicest house in Martha's Vineyard, is pretty damn substantial, right? They go into the Capitol and they see those white marble walls and they see that the beautiful slab tile all over the place, and they have every lobbyist that's kissing their ass. And guess what? They become enamored with it. They've never seen a lifestyle like this. For my father, it was a step back. For our entire family, Washington was a step back in a major way, and that actually allowed my father to be honest. He wasn't there to be wined and dined. My father didn't need to be wined and dined, right? He was normally the guy who was doing the wine and dining. Right? My father went in there because he wanted to save our Constitution, he wanted to save our flag, and he wanted to save, a country that was in a death spiral based on total incompetency of government. I mean, you mentioned Kamala and her not being bright. I mean, this is a person who couldn't use the word gouging, right? I mean, she kept on saying, they're price gauging in this country. They're price gauging. She's trying to say price gouging, and what? She's going to run a $32.5 trillion economy? Give me a break. She was literally the first one off of the stage in the 2020 primary. She got zero support. I mean, zero support. And yet miraculously they threw Biden to the wolves. And she got, 2,400 delegates all on the Democratic side in less than 24 hours? Like, why do I call BS? Why? It was the least democratic process in the world. But that's how the Democrats run. Everything's rigged. Everything's corrupt. It's all a vacuum of power. They don't care about the voters. They'll do anything they can to cheat the system. And we were on the receiving end of that. That is the book Under Siege. Thank God, again, Americans realized exactly what was happening. And thank God we won. And by the way, us winning was the reason we have Middle East peace. Us winning was the reason we have the lowest energy costs ever. Us winning was the reason that we no longer have 10% inflation and is back down at 2%. Us winning is the reason that churches, and Charlie, by the way, and what they did to him, but the reason that churches are full on a Sunday again, and we're bringing back religion and faith and Christianity back to society, right? We're bringing the nuclear family back to society. Thank God we went, because I can't even imagine the status of this country had we not.
No, you know what, Eric? I've said this many times. I mean, we only have had one Savior in this world, and obviously we know that's Jesus Christ, but I believe God saved America and in a large part saved the world by having your father elected again. If your father didn't become president, our country was done. We were finished. No doubt about it.
Well, the parallels to like David and Goliath are significant. I mean, remember, Goliath was the mainstream media, which was 98% negative media coverage toward my father, Michael, right? And Goliath was a weaponized DOJ, and Goliath was an FBI that was spying on our campaign. And Goliath was Hillary Clinton, who raised $1.5 billion when we didn't know what a delegate was. We hardly knew what a caucus was, right? And we self-funded our entire campaign. I mean, my father was David. There's no question about it. And you better believe that God had his hand on my father's shoulder, guiding him through this process. I believe that with every ounce of my soul. American flags don't just fold up like perfect angels when somebody gets shot in the ear immediately upon them getting shot in the ear, and it folds up like a perfect angel right above my father's head. Give me a break. And God was absolutely guiding this process, and we felt it every day. We felt it in ways that you can't even imagine.
No, there's no doubt about it. And I have to tell you this, Eric, I only hope, a lot of people have said that your dad is seeking revenge now by going after these people. And I've told everybody, this is not revenge. This is accountability. These people that did these horrific things, and they were horrific, they need to be held accountable. Our people in government can't be allowed to get away with things like this. They're corrupting the whole system. And I personally, I don't care if they go to jail or not. I'm way beyond that. But every one of them, from Adam Schiff to all of them, they all need to be held accountable. Comey was doing bad things way back when he was dealing with us guys on the street. Weitzman, the guy with Russiagate, horrible guy. This is a bad guy. He'll put people away for nothing. He did the worst possible things on the street. He continued it with your dad and everybody else. These people must be held accountable, and I really hope the Department of Justice does their job with them, because every one of them, the American people need to see that they can't get away with this kind of nonsense anymore.
There has been no accountability. And then, by the way, you try and get accountability, and they say you're weaponizing justice. I mean, they made up a dirty dossier saying my father was doing unthinkable things, right? I mean, they did it to destroy his marriage and destroy his family and destroy his reputation and embarrass him and everything else. There's been no accountability. There's no accountability to Christopher Steele. There's no accountability to Hillary Clinton. I mean, they made up the fact that we had secret servers communicating with the Kremlin located in Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue. They pitted the two largest nuclear superpowers against each other so one greedy woman could get 3 extra votes. And as an excuse, in the aftermath as to why she lost, because she was humiliated and embarrassed, and they should be, because we didn't know what the hell we were doing in politics, right? There's been no accountability. They spied on my father's campaign. There was no accountability. They debanked us. There was no accountability. They threw us off of ballots. There was no accountability. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history. I've never gotten a speeding ticket. There was no accountability. They tried to bankrupt our family. There was no accountability. right? I mean, they literally took us off of Twitter and Facebook and X. They removed our free speech, our First Amendment right in this country. There was no accountability. They leaked all of our tax returns, all of my tax returns, all of my father's tax returns. Every corporate employee in our company, they leaked their tax returns for years and years. There was no accountability. There's never any damn accountability with these people. And then guess what? Letitia James goes out and she commits, what looks to be mortgage fraud. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. You're weaponizing government. Give me a break. Weaponizing government. Do you want me to show you the $400 million worth of legal bills I had protecting myself from BS, all of which has been overturned in the aftermath? I mean, how about missing ears? I'll send them the medical bills as well. I mean, it's a joke. I agree. I want accountability. One last person I want accountability for is what happened at Butler. I want accountability there as well, right? I mean, the nation is not satisfied. They don't know who this kid was. They broke into the cell phones of every January 6th protester, every grandmother who took a picture in the Capitol, who took a selfie in the Capitol, but yet, we've seen one picture. The kid looked like he was 13 at the time. We saw one picture of the guy who tried to blow my father's head off, and you've had zero other answers. I want accountability for that. And I spent a lot of time in Under Siege talking about how this country deserves accountability, and wants transparency as to what actually happened when they've tried to kill my father twice now.
No, we demand that. I mean, people need to know what's going on here. The one thing your father has got to accomplish over these next 3.5 years that he's in office, he's got to stop all of this. People got to understand that they can't come into government and use it as their own personal, advancement and do anything that they want. I've said this all along. The government has all the tools and weapons at their disposal to get somebody the right way. They have all the laws in their favor. They have everything to do it the right way. When they start corrupting the system to benefit themselves, we're in trouble. And especially when the media covers up for it. Those are the two worst things that can happen. Government abuse of power and the media covering up for it. And that's what they've been doing for the past several years. That's it. Your father exposed them. When he used the term fake news, it was like a revolution. Finally, people started to understand, you know what? This is true. These news outlets are all full of baloney. They're all full of shit, every one of them.
Sure. Well, aside from saving grace being God, you know what our true saving grace was? Our saving grace was we had damn loud voices and we knew how to use them after years of The Apprentice and pretty hardcore real estate, and what we did very well. And thank God we had a pocketbook. And honestly, that's the problem. Like, my heart breaks for ordinary people when the government weaponizes against them, where they neither have the voice nor do they have the money to defend themselves, and all of a sudden they're at the they're beholden to some government defendant who doesn't give a damn about them, who doesn't give a damn about their case, who's probably overworked and underqualified in so many cases, and they don't stand a chance. They don't stand a chance against that apparatus. Like, thank God we had the zeros. Thank God we could pay the lawyers. Thank God we had the voice. Thank God we had the backbone. And thank God we had God guiding us and somebody. But it's and honestly, it's one of the reasons we won. I mean, when they took that mugshot of my father, right? Do you remember, he's a flight risk? Do you remember they were saying that?
Yeah.
Is Donald Trump a flight risk? The most famous guy in the world, right? And covered by Secret Service protection 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is now a flight risk. And you know what that did? That pissed off inner city communities all across the country. Like, they're doing the same to this guy as they've done to us for 5 decades. And I don't like it. And I smell a rat, and I know exactly what's happening, and we won't stand for it. I mean, frankly, I can't tell you the vote of how many, inner city communities that we got because of the games that government was playing. So be careful what you wish for. Be careful of the law of unintended consequences, because that's exactly what happened to the Democrats.
Yeah, no, I agree, Eric. And I think a lot of people are fed up, and they finally saw it in this last election. But Eric, you must have had discussions with your dad. These people, there's something mentally and emotionally wrong with them. I mean, I can't even understand the extent of what ideology that they have anymore. I mean, I remember one time when, Biden got up there and he said, to be against gender affirming surgery in minors is immoral and outrageous. And they all ascribe to that, having women, transgender men compete against women in sports. They're all for this. The extent of the craziness that's gone on, I don't know where this came from. I mean, I've never seen anything like this, quite honestly. And I'm 74 years old. In my lifetime, I've never witnessed the extent of the craziness that's going on the left.
Yeah, well, they don't know anything. They don't know anything else. I mean, look at Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden's 55 years. Right? I mean, he's been in government 55 years longer than he's been in government for 55 years, right? I'm 41-year-old guy, so he's been in government almost 15 years longer than I've been alive, and I've got gray in my beard. The difference, Michael, is these guys, they don't know anything else. They don't have anything else. They have the political fight, and they have nothing else. I mean, that's what's troubling. You have so many Republicans who come out of business. They had careers. They did something. They signed the front of a check. These guys, they don't have it. Joe Biden didn't have it. He had nothing else. And I think that's why they fight the way they do. I think that's why they're willing to weaponize every system, because they literally know nothing else other than the power of government, other than, for the first time, having a relevant voice, because they can scream in the halls of the Capitol, even though they've actually never accomplished anything outside of those very halls.
Let me ask you, Eric, when did they start going after the family? I know they went after your father pretty much immediately in 2016. When did they start attacking his family?
Yeah, well, it's called the second we got down to the bottom of the escalator. I mean, I'll never forget, NBC was begging my father for another contract for The Apprentice. They're begging him. I was in the office with them. They want to sign for another 3 seasons, and he looks at them. Mark Burnett was there, who's a producer of The Apprentice, and he goes, "Guys, I have something else on my mind." I mean, he turned down what was probably $1 billion contract for The Apprentice over many more seasons. And I'll never forget, a couple of days later, he goes down that escalator, and NBC was the first to turn on him. I mean, my father saved NBC. They were getting killed by CBS. Obviously, Survivor was on CBS. It was winning the day. NBC was a dying network. Apprentice saved it. My father saved NBC News, right? I mean, they all but said that. And sure enough, 3 days later, he tells them he's not doing another season. He goes down the escalator, and they turn on him like he's an absolute dog. I'll never forget the Washington Post. 12 minutes after my father's hand was on the Bible, right at inauguration, it was January 20th of 2017. 12 minutes later, they wrote an article. "This is when the impeachment of Donald Trump begins." They didn't even give the guy a damn shot. He won overwhelmingly. He won overwhelmingly. Right, in 2017, they gave him 12 minutes before. They were literally out there boasting that this is when they're going to start impeaching him. They are corrupt as hell. And so they started coming after us immediately. I started getting the subpoenas immediately. I was on the board of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. I raised more money for dying kids. I started the foundation when I was 20 years old. I had a 9% expense ratio, the lowest in the country. They came after me like I was a criminal, because they needed to be able to counter-narrative the fact that Hillary and her foundation was a sham. I mean, the expense ratios are horrible. They were flying private jets all over the place. Their work in Haiti was a disaster. It looked like a lot of influence peddling. And yet, they turned that narrative because they need a punching bag against me instantaneously. You've got the Attorney General of the state of New York. Yes, we are immediately going to, investigate the Eric Trump Foundation, who raises money for St. Jude. I go, what are you investigating? I gave 92% of the money raised went directly to dying children. I built the largest ICU in the world dedicated to dying children. I had the lowest expense ratio of any charity in the country. What are you investigating, right? Like, other than the fact that you need a talking point, other than the fact that you're trying to help the other side. They weaponized it starting on day one, second one.
My God. Let me ask you, were you ready right away to jump in the role that you jumped into? It was a pretty big responsibility handling your dad's entire empire, I would call it. Were you ready at that point?
Listen, I don't think you're ever ready for kind of the next step in life. And I'll never forget, I was 33 years old. He goes, "Honey, you run the company. You built so many of our buildings. You know all our management teams. You manage most of them at this point. I want you to take over the company." And I thought it was going to be smooth sailing. I thought it was going to be nice and easy, build hotels, build golf courses, run a great business, do so very well. I'm very, very good at that. I'm really, really good at that. I love it. And I never thought, 99% of my time was going to be spent trying to defend ourselves from AGs and DAs who are trying to literally bribe our employees to turn against, my father. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, you probably have from the background that you've had, but you would have DAs go up to, our CFO, you give us something about Donald Trump, otherwise, we're coming after you. And by the way, I hear you have a son. We're going to go after him as well. And I mean, they were indicting our CFOs for literally having a corporate car, for having a corporate vehicle, right? And like they were indicting them saying, hey, but you tell us anything about Donald Trump, it all goes away. Everything's good. You sail into the sunset, no problem. We'll drop everything. I mean, it was blackmail. That's what they were doing. They were blackmailing our employees, and they never broke. They never once broke. They always said, listen, we have a great company. We've done absolutely nothing wrong. You know, I'm not going to be dishonest. These people had a lot of integrity, but they went down the line trying to blackmail people, trying to get them to break. And I have to say, our employees never did. And it's a great testament to who we are as a company and the integrity of those people.
Well, Eric, too, I don't think, having gone through a lot of this, throughout my, early portion of my life, I don't think people understand the amount of pressure and strain and, that law enforcement brings upon you, I think people get it. And the fact that your father has risen above all of this, I don't think there's been a greater comeback in history that I can ever think of. I mean it.
Never.
To go through all of this, I mean, yes, a blessing that you had the money, because that will kill you in itself. If you don't have the money for this, you're done. But the fact that he was able to overcome this and become president again is, I mean, look, I haven't read your book yet. I would like to, but somebody's got to write a book just about that. I mean it, because it was the greatest comeback ever.
That's what Under Siege is about. I mean, it's what they tried to do to us and how we overcame all of it. And it's a story of family. It's a story of God. It's a story of, governmental corruption. It's the story of the forming of the greatest political movement in American history by far. It's a story of a family that, hey, if you work and you fight, and you persevere and you have backbone and you do not break and you do not cower, you can overcome all evil. That's the siege. And by the way, Michael, that's why I'm #1 on Amazon, right? We are winning right now. People are speaking with their pocketbooks. People are pissed off, right? And, listen, I'm a builder. You know what I build. You've seen every one of our buildings. You know what I do every single day. Did I ever think I was going to be a #1 author on Amazon? And when I say #1, I'm not talking about like #1 in some subcategory. I'm talking about, of the 87,000 books on Amazon, we are #1 right now. We are selling like never before, and we're #1 in every subcategory as well. It's because people in this country are pissed off. They're pissed off at what they did to us, but they're also pissed off at what they did to all of them. They put us under siege, but they put all conservatives under siege in this country. When they started weaponizing the IRS against churches, when they started weaponizing the IRS against conservative organizations, when they started going after kids, people's children, when they started teaching kids, they started teaching them revisionist history. When they started letting men swim in girls' sports, guess what? The entire nation got pissed off. When inflation went to 10%, the entire nation got pissed off. When they saw the greatest sham, right? Hillary Clinton, the rules for thee, but not for me, it pissed the entire nation off. This nation was under siege. It wasn't just the Trump family. We might have taken a lot of the arrows, but every single person watching your show right now was under siege, and those people are pissed off, and those people are making a statement right now, and they've been making that statement by buying the book, and I mean that with every ounce of my heart. You don't have books to sell as well as this one has, unless you have an entire, demographic of this country who is pissed off, who is upset, and knows exactly the siege that was waged on us and waged on all of them. And thank God we won. Thank God we won, because so many great things are going to happen. I mean, we are literally less than a year into this thing right now. We're 9 months into this right now, and look how much my father has accomplished. He's got the wind at his back. He's got an incredible cabinet. He's got the Senate. He's got the House. He's got the Supreme Court. Obviously, we have the executive branch. The media is dead in this country. Independent voice is alive. People are bold. People are willing to speak up like never before in this country. The American people are pissed off. He has the respect of the world again. And God knows the next 3 years is going to be unbelievable. And I love having the popcorn out, and I love watching every single second of it, because these people deserve exactly what they're getting right now. And I've never been more proud of somebody in my life.
Well, I have to tell you, Eric, people need to really understand from the inside point of view that you have from being there and being a victim of all of this, what really went on and what determination you had to have. And really, I've said this all along, I really believe your father loves this country passionately, and he loves the people. And everybody that I know that has met your dad, and I mean this, everybody has nothing but great things to say about him. And I know a lot of people that have met him and have been in his company. I met him once. He probably won't remember, a long, long time ago. Roy Cohen was representing me and wanted to represent me on one of my cases. So I went to meet him, and your father was there. We were in some private club in the Manhattan. I forget what it was, but only for 2 or 3 minutes. We said hello, and that was it. But every person that I know that has met your father has nothing but good and warm things to say about him. I hope I get the opportunity to sit with him one day. But, everybody needs to read this book because they need to understand how bad the other side could be. And when your father has said this, and I believe you said this too, when they went after your father, they were going after everybody. If they can do this to your dad, they can do it to anyone. And that's what people have to be aware of. We cannot allow people in power to weaponize the agencies and the law enforcement agencies that they have to go after people. If they do it to one, they'll do it to everybody. And that's something that everybody needs to understand. I've said this, I've been saying this for years, but your father's situation just highlights it all.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And if you don't have the pocketbook, and if you don't have the mouthpiece, and if you don't have the notoriety, and if you can't stand on that stage and yell from the rafters, they're going to steamroll you. And by the way, that's heartbreaking because there's a lot of people that have gone down for just not being able to protect themselves and not being able to buck the system that has unlimited money and unlimited resources, and has a whole rule book, designed to their advantage, and controls the judges and owns the law clerks, and controls every facet of the rigged system. It is a rigged system, and I would have never said that before I lived this crazy life that I've lived over the last 10 years.
No question. Let me ask you this. Of all your dad's accomplishments, I think what's occurred in the last couple of days, if we achieve peace like this in the Middle East, it'll be something that I think many people never thought would be possible. And only somebody like your dad was able to pull it off.
Yeah, there's no question. But I mean, the fact that he's getting snubbed for the Nobel Peace Prize is like disgusting to me. I mean, I can't tell you. He has worked so hard to end every conflict. I've personally seen him end a lot of them. I saw him end the conflict with Cambodia. You know that one very well. I mean, obviously what he did with India and Pakistan. I mean, the Pakistan Prime Minister the other day came out and said that they might have been out in nuclear war. I mean, that's a hell of a statement, right? But you go on YouTube at night, and a video pops up of the trench warfare over in Ukraine, and you look at these like beautiful kids. They're so young. Right? They've got their entire life ahead of them. I have a young little son, and I know how much time it takes to raise that child. When you have to discipline him, when you have to love him, when you have to play catch with him, when you give him a hug, when you say prayers with him before bed, right? When you take him to school every day, when you feed him the thousands and thousands, the tens of thousands of hours of nurturing. And then you see, two people who look identical. They're 19 years old. They come around some trench with an AK, and exactly about 2 pounds of force on a trigger finger extinguishes a life in about 1/100th of a second, and you're saying, what the hell is happening to our world? Why do we need this? And I'm no baby, right? I can't stand it, and my father can't stand it. It's just a senseless wars, a senseless violence. For what reason? What's this getting humanity? And he saved a lot of lives yesterday. There's no question about it. I mean, with the Iran raid, I was incredibly proud of him that day too. That was the best of America. You made sure, that a country that shouts death to America isn't going to have a nuclear weapon, because believe me, whether they used it or they had one of their crazy proxies use it, probably the latter, they would have used it on the Western way of life, and you would have had hundreds of thousands of people, if not many millions of people, and probably cities destroyed. And so, thank God he's bringing peace. Thank God he's bringing stability. Thank God he's a voice of reason. Thank God he doesn't put up with nonsense from these people, from these crazy countries, and thank God that like common sense is really coalescing around him.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me ask you, does he ever sleep?
No. No,
I mean,
he
he's
doesn't.
got-
By the way, none of us are big sleepers in this family. It's if I get 4.5, 5 hours of sleep a night, I'm doing well. If he gets, the guy's remarkable. He'll call me at 11:30 at night. He'll call me at 5 o'clock in the morning. He came off of Air Force One last night at 3 a.m. I mean, think about this. He calls me on Saturday. He goes, honey, come over to Israel. I go, Pops, I can't. I'm coming out with the book this week. We were literally released on Tuesday. It's just a bad week. I'm doing a ton of media. He leaves on Sunday afternoon. He flies to Israel. He addresses Parliament, right? He goes from Israel, 2 stops in Israel. He flies to Egypt, right?
No.
He addresses all the world leaders, both publicly and in person, and multiple public events. Then he flies back to Washington, D.C. He's back in Washington, D.C. almost 36 hours later in time to have a cabinet meeting to meet with Millie, right? I mean, from Argentina, only to then give, right now as we're speaking, Charlie Kirk the Medal of Freedom, right? He did that in 48 hours. He did all of that in 48 hours. I mean, the guy doesn't sleep. He doesn't stop. He doesn't rest. He's always on. He's always fighting. Isn't that what America wants? Like, don't we want fighters? Like, don't you want the tough guys out there fighting for this nation? Like, am I the only person who doesn't want the night? Like, my grandmother's incredibly nice. Would make a terrible president. Would make a terrible president, right? Like, don't you want the person who fights, who uses smarts, who doesn't sleep, who charges hard, who utilizes common sense, who's a great negotiator? Like, isn't that the person you want representing the United States of America? And obviously the answer is yes. I think you could even ask the Democrats that question. I mean, in the middle of a conflict, who would you rather have? In the middle of an armed conflict, would you rather have Donald Trump at the helm, or would you have Joe Biden, who's, who can barely eat his ice cream, and he can't walk across a stage, and he can't get through a coherent sentence without fumbling a word?
No, listen, I get in trouble for this all the time with people, but I think Joe Biden was the biggest fraud. Listen, I'm a Christian, no question about it, but I had to go to sleep at night knowing the damage this man was doing to my country. And listen, I'm 74 years old. What are they going to do to me? God knows how many years I have left, but I got kids and grandchildren. And this guy was destroying this country. These people were destroying this country. And I had to stop myself from having real hatred for this guy. And, we're not supposed to do that. But, he's just a bad guy. He was dishonest in every way. Eric, when you put your hand on a Bible and people put their faith and trust in you to act in their best behalf, and then you go into office and you trample on that, you have your own agenda, that's worse. I'm telling you, that's worse than guys on the street. We didn't take an oath to do that. We did what we did on the street. We weren't as bad, in my view, as these people are that take an oath to do the best for people that elect them, and then go out and absolutely trample all over that. It's just terrible, and they do it consistently. And I do want to say this. I have said this consistently, that the hatred that we hear from the left, your father's Hitler, your father's a fascist, your father's going to destroy democracy. They did that so consistently, it trickles down to people on the bottom, some of them that are not, emotionally stable. And as a result, we see the Charlie Kirk assassination. We see all these things happening. And people jump on me, Michael, it's not that way. No, it is that way. Because these are people in control that is saying these things, and people that are not balanced properly, they look at your father, oh, he's Hitler, oh, he's a fascist, oh, he's going to destroy America, and they act out. And that's what's happening here. And they won't stop.
Isn't the great irony is, they call us fascists, yet, they have guys dressed up in all black with sniper rifles sitting on the rooftops of buildings, shooting over college kids who are trying to exercise their free speech right. I would generally say that that's the definition of fascism, right? But, they've called us, hey, guess what? They were saying that we're anti-Semitic, right? And my father's been the savior of Israel. His daughter converted to Judaism, right? But yet we're anti-Semitic. And they said we're sexist, yet isn't that really funny? Kellyanne Conway, his first campaign manager, was a woman, right? Susie Wiles, his current, campaign manager and now chief of staff, was a woman. The only president in history that had, it's two campaign managers who was female who won, right? Never before. You just have not seen that ever before in American politics. Yet, my father is such a sexist that he happens to empower incredibly powerful women, right? To do the most important jobs in his life. And they said the same racism thing, and then every day it was something new. They said he was going to be a warmonger. Donald Trump wouldn't be able to control his finger on the nuclear button. Remember, Hillary Clinton said that all the time. And, that's what they've always done. They've always played identity politics. Unfortunately, fortunately, they've gotten it totally wrong. And America knows they've gotten it totally wrong. And America knows that they're actually the warmongers. They're actually the fascists. They're actually the racists. They're actually the anti-Semites in this country, right? As you see them in Portland, doing everything they can to prop up terrorist organizations. As the media and as social media throws my father off of Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and YouTube, while allowing Boko Haram and Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and the Ayatollah all to remain, but yet, my father is the one that's, destabilizing the world. It's rather remarkable.
Well, I have to say this too, Eric. You judge a man by his family, and you obviously have a wonderful family that's, managed to stay together and really fight through all of this. I see how your dad is with his granddaughter. I see how he is with all his kids, and that's to go through all that you have gone through as a family and to remain this close in contact with each
Yeah.
other, as a group is very admirable. I have to say
Thank
that
you.
it really
Thank you.
is.
Thank you. Well, listen, I love the man to death. I will fight by his side as long as I'm here, as long as he's there. I believe in him. I came down that escalator, and I'm not one of these guys who flips teams. I'm just not. I never will be. Right? I mean, I chose my team, and we chose the right team, and I've never left that stage. In the tough times, I've never left that stage, and the beautiful times, I've never left that stage. I've been by his side. I was in that courtroom every single day with my father. I would not leave his side, and I think loyalty is important in life. And I think sticking by people you know and love, and standing up to BS and nonsense is equally important. And I'll always do that as a son. I love the man tremendously, and honestly, I think the fruits of our labor right now are showing. Showing in all the good things that he's doing. And I think America is a better country for it. And I think one day, hopefully, we'll get credit. I know he will. Hopefully, we'll all get credit for standing our ground and not backing down, and standing tall, despite the ruthless assault, despite the amount of lead that was put in the air, all directed right at our head. I hope history will reward us in that way.
Well, I'm sure it will. Let me ask you, after all you've been through and continue to go through, you ever think about getting into politics yourself? I
It's a
mean,
terrible
really
business.
going into it?
Michael, it's terrible industry. It's terrible business. I would recommend highly staying away from it. Listen, I say that facetiously. I think we've become good at it. I think it's been a brutal journey. I think my father's recast the entire political party, and thank God we have some fighters in there. And I would probably give you the same answer that he gave a long time ago, only if it's got so bad that I had no other choice. I mean, I love what I do. I love building. I love real estate. I love everything that we're accomplishing. And by the way, you better have a family that's ready for it, because they'll destroy your family just as quickly as they'll destroy you, right? But I think we've gotten good at it. I think we understand the voice and the spirit of the American people as well as any. At the same time, I've seen the worst sides of politics, right? It's the siege that I talk about. And I've also seen the best sides of politics. I really have. I've seen the beauty of it, and then I've seen the worst parts of it. And man, it's brutal. It's brutal. It's thankless. But I think I'd give you the same answer as he gave a long time ago. If it got so bad that you had no other choice, I think I would think about putting my hat in the ring. But we'll see what time brings, and if we actually have to do that.
Well, has he promoted you to do that at all? Has he talked about it with you?
And now I think he's been too damn busy, trying to save the nation. And but I think he is very proud of all his kids. I mean, they never broke any of us, and they wanted to. And the first rule of politics, Michael, is you keep your family off of that stage. You keep your family out of politics, and we broke that rule. We broke that rule from second one. We are all we had. The only thing we had was family, and we went out there. We fought like hell, and I fought like hell. And probably more so than anyone, in that I was trying to fight for politics while trying to, run a company and trying to keep it all intact all at the same time. And I'm really proud of what we've done, and I'm really proud of him, and I'm really proud that they never broke us, because they've broken a lot of political kids. You know that. I can name 20 of them. If I didn't want to start insulting people, I could name 20 of them. They've broken so many kids of politicians that didn't have the backbone and didn't have the smarts and didn't have the stamina and just didn't have the will, and they cracked them. They broke them. They never broke any of us. They never broke me. They never broke Don. They never broke Ivanka. They never broke Tiffany, and they never broke Barron. And I would point to great parenting, and I would point to maybe good genetics and stubborn genetics, and maybe being a little bit masochistic in that maybe we like suffering and pain, but they weren't able to take us out as much as they tried to get us to all turn on one another.
No, I have to agree with that. And let me ask you, what was really the motivation? Did you just sit down one day and say, "Listen, I have to write this book. The American people need to understand, what's happening with our system and what this family went through"?
I saw so many phonies. You probably see it in the life that you lived, but I saw so many phonies writing books about things that they didn't understand, things that they weren't a part of, trying to take credit for decisions that they didn't make, being part of conversations that they weren't in the room for. And every single one of them came. And by the way, and then you had the publishers who baited them into saying things, because they were going to get nice upfronts on books. And honestly, one day I got sick and tired of it. And I said, somebody needs to, especially in the days of digital media and Wikipedia and revisionist history, somebody needed to write what they did about a person and about a family and about a movement, and be comprehensive and line it all up. And by the way, and tell the story from behind the scenes, not the story that you read on the front pages of the New York Times, what they did, how they corrupted the courts, how they corrupted the system, what they tried to do to destroy us every single day. And I had to write that story. And I really believe that this book will go down in time as a guide to the worst weaponization of a political system this country has ever seen by a factor of a lot. It spells it all out, and it cannot be rebuffed. It cannot be rebuked. It's what happened every single day over a decade-long period of time. And again, the inspirational thing of how we were raised, how we were able to win, while those walls were collapsing in on us, how we were able to fight them back. So there's kind of a great entrepreneurial theme in there. There's an unbelievable family theme in there. There's the soft side of Donald Trump that people don't see in terms of him as a father and how he raised, great children. How my mom contributed so much to that fight, and she was tough as hell. She was as tough as they came. You probably remember her from, the 90s. She didn't get pushed around by anybody. She was a tough cookie, to say the least. But how the greatest movement in political history was formed, and ultimately how we won against unthinkable odds, ultimately to save this nation. Somebody had to tell the real story, not these little, side conversations that didn't exist, from people who are irrelevant throughout the entire process.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you wrote the book. I agree with you. This story needs to be told, and no better person to tell it, than you as his son. If there's anything that I believe and that I am so strongly against is the government weaponizing, against their political enemies or against any enemies at all. And the way they attacked your family, Eric, listen, having been on the street and having some, understanding of this, I've never seen anything like it. And I really mean that. And look, like I said, my father, I don't know if you know the history, but my father ended up with a 50-year sentence for a crime that he didn't commit. Now, okay, he was an organized crime. He did some things in the past I'm sure he got away with. But my dad was framed. He did 40 years on a crime that he didn't commit. I'll take that to my grave. And listen, I went to jail for a crime that I was guilty of. I pled guilty. I did my time, paid my fines. But I seen how the government can weaponize, but I've never seen it to the extent of what they did to your father, a legitimate guy. At least with us, they had an excuse. We were on the street. But a legitimate guy and a legitimate family to go after. And I got to tell you this too, Eric. They never bothered our families. They went after us, but they never bothered our families. What they did to your father was unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it. And I really mean, and I've been saying this, not because I'm talking to you now. I've been saying this for the last couple of years. I've never seen anything like it.
They never tried to get, isn't it really amazing that, this wasn't in the lead up to 2016 because no one thought he could beat Hillary Clinton, right? Isn't it really ironic that the only time my father has ever had, the law come after him was when he was bold enough to rerun for politics in 2022. That's when they ramped all of this up. That's when they tried to destroy his life. Isn't that really interesting? Go back to the 90s. Go back to organized crime, right? You know more about the concrete mob in the in the city, and you know everything about that, right? My father
Sure.
never played that game. He didn't play that game in Atlantic City. He didn't play that game in New York City. And by the way, you've got the biggest people in all those families who always said, Donald Trump was a straight shooter. He never played that game. He never played that game. And is it really interesting that he's never had so much as a demerit? He never had anything until he dared to run again, in which case all of a sudden he had 91 felony convictions, 34 of which were for a $100,000 payment that he didn't even make. Give me a break. They shut down all of Lower Manhattan under Alvin Bragg when they were decriminalizing everything for a $100,000 payment not even made by my father? Does anybody actually believe that? Of course they don't. And everybody knows exactly why they were doing it.
Eric, let me tell you, I haven't said this publicly, but during the Russiagate stupid investigation that they had, you know that I got a visit by 2 FBI agents, and they came to me because one of my partners was a Russian, David Bogatin, and he had bought 2 condos in Trump Towers, and he paid cash for them at the time. You know, they came to me and asked me about that during the Mueller investigation, and I said, wait a second, are you trying to establish a connection between Russia and because my partner 35 or 40 years ago bought these condos? I said, do me a favor, bring me in front of that investor. I want to talk about it. I never heard from them again.
Of course
That was
not.
it.
Yeah, of course
That's
not.
how far. That's how far they tried to reach.
No different when they called me up and said, I hear there are secret servers in the basement of Trump Tower communicating with the Gremlin. Hey guys, come over right now. Like I can't move, I can't move a Roomba servers in the next 5 minutes, right? It would take you like days. Do me a favor. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Let's go. You know, walk any room you want. I mean, first of all, we're like cloud-based computing. We weren't servers. Second of all, you don't put servers in the basement of buildings because basements flood, right? Let's just go through the common sense. But come on, FBI. Like, come over right now. I'll give you a tour. Any room you want, I'll open the door. Let's go. They didn't give a damn about the facts, right? Don't let that mistake, all right? They just wanted to create a narrative to otherwise hurt a political adversary. That's all they wanted to do. They didn't give a damn about the truth. They just wanted to hurt him.
Yeah, no, that was quite obvious. You know, I have to say something, and I had told this to Lara. One of the greatest things I saw your father do was obviously get up after that, bullet practically got him in the head, and get up and said, fight, fight, fight. Now, I know your dad doesn't drink, and I know you have a winery, right?
We do.
You do, okay. So I wanted to give your father something. So we had this bottle of wine. I have a wine business also, and we created this. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it?
Barely,
Okay.
a little bit.
It's actually the image of your dad getting up and saying, fight, fight, fight. We put it on the bottle.
Amazing.
So if I ever get the pleasure of meeting you in Florida or wherever, I'd love to give this to you to give to Dad. I know he's not going to drink it. Just put it wherever he puts it.
Well, Michael, that's so nice of you. And honestly, it's been an honor. And you've been so amazing in this fight for everything that's right and just. And we really appreciate it. That means the world.
Well, listen, you can count on me because, like I said, I believe in everything that your father is doing. I believe, God saved America through him. I really mean that. I can't wait to see what happens in these next 3 years. He just continues on the path that he's on. He's done more in 9 months than presidents do in 2 terms. So I just hope he continues at this pace, really.
Yeah, that's so nice. He will. He will. That man is all fight, and he's just, he's having fun. At this point, he's having fun. Watch out.
Well, there you have it, my friends. I got to tell you, people have come at me, oh, you're a Donald Trump supporter, you're this and that. I said it once, I said it 100 times, maybe more than that. I have no horse in this race other than the concern I have for my country, my wife, my children, and my grandchildren, their future. And I saw America really, really, really going down a rabbit hole in a bad place. I seen it through the Biden administration. I saw it a little bit. It started with me when I was really paying attention with Barack Obama. These were just bad people. I'm sorry, they were bad people. And to do what they did to this family that's described in this book that Eric just talked about, this is bad. This is almost spiritual warfare. And, you heard Eric. I mean, again, this is a guy that never was in trouble in his entire life and took over an operation when his father became president, did everything to support him, to support their businesses, did a tremendous job, and had to go through all of this. I really believe with all my heart, I really believe that, God is in their corner, that God is in our corner, because he let this family survive all of this, attacks on their businesses, tried to bankrupt them, tried to put them all in prison, tried to basically get their father assassinated. Do you think they would shed a tear if something had happened to Donald Trump? Of course not. They make believe they care, but they didn't care that much when the immigrants or migrants were coming over this border illegally and infiltrating towns and cities and raping women. And yes, it happened. They didn't care about that. They don't care when they let people out on the street, with no bail, that have committed crime after crime after crime after crime and continue to do that. They don't care about people then. It's all a facade on their part. They don't care, people. and what they've done to this family. You got to read, I keep saying it, you got to read this book for your benefit. Not for anything else, for your benefit, because you need to understand. I wrote a book, Mafia Democracy, tried to make you understand the system of government and how it works. This book is frightening. Tells you even more, and even more trouble that we could be in if we don't get these people in check. And I said this to Eric, and I'm saying it again. All these people need to be held accountable. This is not a revenge tour on Donald Trump. Comey, Letitia James, Adam Schiff, they all need to be held accountable for what they tried to do to this country. Every single one of them. So I don't want to keep going, people. I can talk about this. Tremendous book. Again, I tell you, you must read it for your own benefit. Got to read it. Eric, thank you so much for coming aboard. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all nothing but the best, because if the best is for you, it's going to be best for America. And that's what we care about. So how do I leave you, people? Always the same, never going to change. Be safe. We're a lot safer now that Donald Trump is in office. You have to agree with that, whether you like it or not. Be healthy. Robert F. Kennedy, he's doing his job, and I think it's going to be felt in these next 3 years with all of us. Be safe, be healthy. God bless each and every one of you, your family, your friends, your neighborhood, your communities, your loved ones, and God bless America and the Trump family. Keep up the great work. See you next time. My friends, I have a question for you. How would you like to get more of me? When I say more of me, I mean intimate phone calls, Zoom calls, Q&As, questions. You can ask me anything that you want. You know, behind the scenes information. I can't tell everything on YouTube. This is an elite group. We have over 1,000 people that are involved, not only with me, but helping one another. It's a great platform that we've created. So become part of the family. Yes, it's an offer that you shouldn't refuse. MichaelFranzese.com/family. Be part of the legacy today.